Hello everyone, here we are with a new saga from the channel. This time we will present the saga, The First Super Saiyan. I believe most people have wondered who the first Super Saiyan was and what he did during his life. If you ask yourself that question and want to know the answer, then you come to the right place. If you're curious to know what's going to happen, I recommend that you continue until the end of this video. Don't forget to like the video as this contributes to the growth of the channel, and then share this video with your friends who also like Dragon Ball. That said, grab your lunch, turn off the bedroom lights, and join this incredible saga. The angel apprentice, Kenon, watched Wukong bury Yamoshi's body amidst the rubble of the destroyed Yamoshi castle. The Saiyan Wukong remained sad about the whole situation and at the same time very angry with the king of the icy race, Frigg. After finishing burying Yamoshi, the wise Wukong walked over to the apprentice angel Kenon to talk. Upon approaching Kenon, Wukong questioned him, "What happened to me during that fight?" asked Wukong seriously to the apprentice angel. The apprentice Kenon said, "You unlocked a technique known to the angels as Ultra Instinct. A mortal like you will never be able to master this technique perfectly, but I can teach you how to master it better in combat," Kenon said while Wukong reflected. Wukong, still a little confused, asked, "How did this come about in me? I felt my movements lighter and a power that I never felt. I confess that it unbalanced me a little in the battle," Wukong said, trying to explain what he felt. The angel apprentice Kenon said, "The contact with angelic beings must have resonated in your divine ki. This made you develop the beginning of the technique. The fact that you are naturally powerful must have contributed to this technique arising in you. However, you can still improve this technique," explained Kenon, who then hit his staff on the ground and teleported himself with Wukong back to the cave. Wukong did not understand why Kenon had done that and questioned, "Why the hell did you bring us here?" "We need to go after Frigg," explained Wukong, irritated. The angel apprentice replied calmly, "Frigg's army is spread across the planet and slowly dominating the remaining inhabitants. You need training if you really want to save your people." "What do you say?" questioned Kenon, while Wukong went to the entrance of the cave and looked at several explosions and screams of desperate Saiyans that were on the planet. Wukong felt slightly obliged to accept Kenon's proposal. After all, his people needed him at that moment. Wukong swallowed his own saliva and turned to Kenon, saying, "All right, I accept. I'll show Frigg who the strongest one is," said Wukong, pressing his teeth due to his anger. Kenon smiled and then teleported himself and Wukong to a kind of empty planet where they would begin their training. The angel Kenon faced Wukong and said, "Let's go. We have to get to the practical part as soon as possible. I'll give you hints as we go, but for now we'll just stick with the physical work. You'll need to dodge the moves I'm going to use, so good luck," said the angel Kenon, staying away a few meters. After that, he started the so arduous training of Wukong. Even before Wukong got ready, Kenon hit him with a punch that caused a wave of vacuum throughout the place, hitting Wukong directly, who was thrown for a few meters. Wukong got up, but was soon hit by another one of those punches, causing Wukong to be injured. Kenon continued this process over and over until Wukong noticed a pattern. Kenon always attacked from one side only. Every punch Kenon threw followed an invisible line that was extremely predictable. Kenon used both hands to throw the punches, however both went in the same directions. Wukong took a deep breath and then managed to dodge one of Kenon's punches, and that was repeated several times until Wukong managed to get close enough to block Kenon's fists at once. Wukong had understood what Kenon was doing. Kenon looked at him in surprise and said with a surprised tone, "How? You managed to predict my movements so fast. You really are a genius, Wukong. Congratulations. Now let's go to the next sentence. You'll have to hit me with 2 blows, but it has to be straight blows, preferably to my face. If you hit me, we'll move on to the last phase and then the mental part. However, I'm going to deactivate my higher instinct, which is something all angels have. That way you'll have a slim chance of hitting me," said the angel Kenon after taking distance. Kenon distanced himself a little. He concentrated and his aura began to increase. However, as Kenon concentrated, his aura began to disperse. Wukong even felt that Kenon's power was slipping away. However, Kenon was still just as powerful, and after a few seconds, Kenon was already without his superior instinct. This time, who went on the attack first was Wukong, who went after Kenon, trying to hit him in every possible way, with kicks, punches, elbows, but nothing worked. Whenever a blow came close, Kenon managed to dodge it, but he never counterattacked. He was always closely watching Wukong, who still couldn't even touch Kenon. Wukong, on the other hand, was applying blows while thinking, what made the fight balanced the day he faced Frigg? Maybe it was a mixture of several consecutive blows. Wukong then thought about it and waited for an opportune moment of him to destroy Kennan's guard. Wukong punched Kennan's face, but Kennan ducked and dodged. However, Wukong pulled Kennan by the hair, bringing his face to Wukong's knee, who kneed Kennan's face. After that, Wukong continued hitting an accurate punch on the face of the angel Kennan, leaving him badly injured. Wukong then gave Kennan a thunderous kick, causing the angel to fly away and raise a lot of dust. Kennan got up and his face was bleeding, but as soon as he snapped his fingers, his body regenerated entirely. Wukong was stunned, as his effort to hit an angel apprentice had been in vain. As soon as he realized this, Kennan said in a mocking tone, "Naive boy, you only hit me because I let you," said the angel Kennan, clearly speaking the truth. Wukong replied angrily that with all that certainty in the universe is a lie. "You're just saying that to not have your level matched to that of a mortal," said Wukong, quite irritated. Kennan then said to prove what he had said before, "Saiyan fool, I just ignored the superior instinct to test the power of your blows. Try hitting me again, and since you're so cocky, it's going to cost you. You can only stop trying when you hit me. Is that all right with you, self-absorbed mortal?" said Kennan, activating his fighting posture. Wukong was determined, and he smiled evilly, saying, "Sure, I just hope you don't regret it," Wukong said, again getting into his fighting posture. Wukong shot towards Kennan with a flying kick, and Kennan dodged it like it was nothing. Then Wukong continued with several consecutive kicks, and Kennan didn't allow anything to hit him. The angel apprentice, trying to annoy the Saiyan, said, "I knew this would be easy, but I didn't think you were so slow," said Kennan, annoying Wukong. The angel apprentice was wanting to increase Wukong's resistance, as that was what he lacked in the fight against the king of the icy race. The Saiyan fell easily under Kennan's provocation and spoke in an angry tone. "I was just getting started. You will pay me. Look at this," Wukong said, distancing himself and trying something new. Wukong fired several gusts of ki aiming at Kennan's feet, who dodged, dancing a tap dance. The Saiyan intended to raise dust to impair his opponent's vision, so that he could attack without Kennan seeing him. Wukong attacked from several different directions, and he was faster than before, but that wasn't even close to hitting Kennan, who was wiping the dust off his clothes while dodging the blows. Kennan continued with the taunts. "In addition to being slow, you are surprisingly stupid. Did you really think that mere dust would stop me from making a fool of you?" Kennan said, teasing Wukong with his comments. Wukong screamed with all his fury and said, "I have more tricks up my sleeve," said Wukong, getting ready to try something. Wukong stretched his right arm and moved it to the left. He did the same with his left leg, and soon after doing that, Wukong was spinning on the same axis. This obviously opened his guard, but Wukong knew his opponent wasn't going to attack him. Kennan went backwards to dodge his opponent's whirling kicks and punches, but Wukong had already planned this and then started shooting blasts of ki with his hand, which ended up destroying the environment around him and forced Kennan to teleport upwards. However, Wukong had also thought of that, and so he rose while spinning. Kennan found himself in a situation that forced him to teleport constantly. If Kennan attacked, Wukong would already be on the ground, but since that's not the case, it became very difficult for Wukong, who said, "Why are you teleporting?" Now it got hard, didn't it? "At some point your ki will run out," Wukong said, putting psychological pressure on Kennan. Kennan didn't fall for the taunts made by a mortal, and then he said ironically, "I think yours ends sooner, you idiot. Could it be that you have more ki than me?" said Kennan, trying to put psychological pressure on Wukong too. Wukong looked at Kennan and said, "Then I'll show you what I'm capable of," said Wukong, positioning himself for combat. In the last chapters we met Yamoshi, but the king of the icy race, Frigg, and his entire army began to attack Yamoshi's castle. During the attack, Yamoshi was mortally wounded. Being out of combat, Wukong then went to face Frigg, and during the combat, Wukong began to awaken a power known as Ultra Instinct. This was a technique used by angels. After thinking that he had defeated Wukong, Frigg fled, and while that was happening, Yamoshi died in Wukong's arms, who at that moment was determined to end Frigg and his entire army. Will he be able to control this technique and avenge Yamoshi's death? Well, stay with us as we bring you the story. Wukong continued to strike Kennan non-stop, who was managing to easily dodge Wukong's strikes. Wukong could no longer stand up, and then the angel Kennan said, "Let's rest, because it is already clear to me that you're not even close to hitting me. We're going to stop and get something to eat. It's getting dark. So that's it for today. You still don't have enough power to defeat the peak king of the ice race, let alone enough power to touch a hair of mine. Of course, without my obvious allowing it." "Was I clear?" said the angel Kennan, breaking all Wukong's expectations. Wukong was disappointed with himself and his own performance, and said,
Yes, it was. Fine, but make a note of it that one day I'll make you pay your tongue. Now let's eat before I die of starvation or dehydration, Wukong said, turning his back to Kennen. Kennen took him to an open field, and there they ate the food Kennen carried. Wukong ate heartily. He was tired from his last experiences, while Kennen hardly ate or rested just to rub it in Wukong's face that he was tired. Wukong didn't even notice Kennen's teasing and fell asleep after eating. Kennen covered him and spent time normally. After waking up, Wukong went looking for help, as Wukong thought that with this, he would be able to beat anyone. Wukong wandered around the planet at dawn and realized that the planet was being dominated by the icy race, which was being merciless with its inhabitants. This icy race was a powerful enemy, but for the Saiyan Wukong, this was a good sign, since if the Empire was being ruthless, then surely there would be rebellions. Wukong followed his path in search of finding someone who wanted to rebel against the monarchy. Only, to his sadness, he found no one. Wukong went after a village that was close to his house. There was some battle suits there, and there weren't many guards monitoring. Wukong approached the village and saw some soldiers walking around. There weren't many. Wukong heard the conversation of some of them cautiously so that one could see him, and Wukong heard that there was an elder in the village with a technique of immense destructive power, which would help him a lot. The Saiyan calmly approached the first guard and killed him so that no one could hear him, because if anyone noticed that there was a Saiyan there, the person would be able to call for reinforcements just to end Wukong's life. A while passed, and Wukong had managed to finish off 3 of the guards without being noticed, but when going through the 4th guard, Wukong had an idea. The 4th guard was captured by the Saiyan, who questioned him. "I heard that there is an old man in the village who is very powerful. Is that true?" Wukong said, questioning the guard. The guard replied, "Filthy Saiyan, I won't tell you anything. You're no match for the powerful icy race." The guard replied before being interrupted. Wukong interrupted him with a punch in the face, and soon after grabbing his arm, saying, "Listen here, idiot. If you don't tell me, I'll destroy your arm and make you eat it. So I recommend you tell me what I want to know," Wukong said, threatening the guard. The guard gave in to the threat and gave Wukong what he wanted. "No one is sure about that. This is just a rumor that goes around the city. But I know one thing. If this old man doesn't know that technique, then he certainly knows how you get," said the guard, finally giving the information to Wukong. Wukong broke the guard's arm and laughed. The guard then said angrily, "Why did you do that?" "I told you everything I know," said the guard, completely revolted. The guard was agonizing due to the pain of having his arm broken. The Saiyan Wukong replied, "I know. That's why I won't make you eat it," Wukong said, making fun of the guard. Before the guard could scream for help, the Saiyan finished him off and went to the village in search of the old man. Wukong walked slowly and stealthily into the village, sneaking into blind spots or spots that had no soldiers. He didn't know exactly which house the elder was in, but he knew the guards had that information. Wukong stayed close to one of the houses until a soldier passed very close to him. Wukong was in the dark. The soldier was holding a spear and a lamp. The soldier turned towards the direction Wukong was standing in, and the darkness disappeared due to the lamp, revealing the figure of Wukong standing behind one of those houses in the village. Before the soldier screamed, Wukong landed a blow on the soldier's throat, damaging his vocal cords. Wukong took advantage of the fact that the soldier couldn't defend himself, because his hands were full, and pulled him into the darkness again. Wukong extinguished the lamp, immobilized the soldier, and then said, "Where is the old man? If you do anything, I will destroy you," Wukong said, pressing the soldier to the ground. The soldier shook his head in denial. Apparently he wasn't going to say, so Wukong just finished the soldier with punches to the face. Wukong began investigating the soldier's clothing and found a knife, a canteen of water, and an ID. Wukong got all these soldiers' accessories. Wukong wore the soldier's clothes, put on his identification and a mask to cover his face. Then Wukong disposed of the soldier's body in a hidden location. Wukong went from house to house checking the situation and always making the excuse that it was just a patrol. Wukong entered a house which had several soldiers and an old man sitting on the floor. Wukong said, "Is this the elder of this village?" asked Wukong, trying to make as good an impression as possible. The soldiers were clearly confused, but they nodded in agreement. Wukong just stood there in front of the door. He closed the door and locked it, and then Wukong waited a few minutes. Wukong was sighing, tired of waiting. Then he pulled out the knife that was in his pocket, and using his quick speed, he delivered hundreds of blows to the guards who were standing still. Wukong finished off all the soldiers without letting any escape alive or making any noise. Wukong walked up to the old man and knelt down in front of him, saying, "Sir, my name is Wukong. I'm one of the Saiyans' race's generals, and I wanted you to teach me your special technique." I want to become strong enough to destroy Frigg and the Ice Race army. Please teach me your techniques which are secret, Wukong said, looking deep into the old man's eyes. The elder then looked at Wukong and said, It's a pleasure to meet you, Wukong. So you want to learn my secret technique, is that it? All right. If it's for the sake of my race, I'll teach you. First, memorize the name of this technique. Well, its name is Garlic Ho, said the elder facing Wukong.
In the previous chapter, Wukong and Kennen were training incessantly. Wukong's mission was still to land a hit on the angel Kennen. However, he wasn't succeeding. Kennen could predict and easily dodge the movements performed by the Saiyan Wukong. After a few minutes trying to hit Kennen, Wukong had stopped by the angel, and they took a break to eat something. Wukong, after the rebellion he had in the village of the Saiyans, captured and interrogated some guards of the icy race. The guards said that there was an elder in the village who was apparently quite powerful. Wukong disguised himself as a guard and explored the place, infiltrating the old man's house with guard clothes. In one quick move, Wukong eliminated all the ice race guards present in the elder's house and started talking with the elder. Wukong was still at the elder's house and they were talking face to face. Wukong said, "But here, right now, you won't be able to teach me. I'll take you to a more private place," Wukong said, looking at the old man. The old man said, "Yeah, you're right, young man. Let's get out of here," said the elder in a tone of agreement with Kong. When Wukong and the elder were leaving the place where they were, dozens of ice race soldiers had just arrived at that place. One of the icy race soldiers said, "Surrender, or we will have to kill you." One of the soldiers pointed his hand where the boys were. Wukong said, "Don't you get tired of being beaten? Don't you know that I'm stronger than you?" Wukong said, raising his hand and pointing his finger at himself. He was full of conviction that he would win that fight. Wukong extended his hand toward the soldier and fired a blast of ki that went through the soldier's body. Wukong said, "Hide behind something, elder. I'll take care of you," said Wukong, going up to the icy lizards. Wukong shot several blasts of ki at the soldiers, eliminating one by one. Then Wukong used his Taioken to blind the rest of the soldiers. The Saiyan went to where the old man was and ended up picking up the old man and getting out of there as quickly as possible. Wukong said, "Let's go to my cave, old man," Wukong said, carrying the old man in his arms. Arriving at the cave, the apprentice angel, Kennen, appeared and started to argue with Wukong. Kennen said, "You shouldn't have left the training camp, Wukong. You left without my permission on a risky mission. I should punish you for that." The angel appeared to be very irritated with Kong because of his attitude. However, Wukong replied to his mentor, "I did it for my race. You wouldn't understand," said Wukong, irritated with the angel. Wukong continued to speak. "Because it is not your race that is in danger," Wukong continued, speaking in a sad tone. The angel apprentice Kennen said, "Then I'll save your training for later. I won't intrude. See you later, Wukong," Kennen said, turning his back and leaving the cave. After the angel left the cave, Wukong went to where the old man was. Wukong said, "You're hungry, aren't you? I'll see if I can get some things to eat. Rest up," said Wukong, leaving the cave and heading towards a forest not far away to hunt. A few hours later, the Saiyan came back with meat and fruit and started a fire to cook the meat better. After Wukong prepared the food, he handed it to the elder. Both ate, and after a long meal, they went to sleep. The next day, the elder, as promised, went to teach Wukong the technique. But first, the elder gave a demonstration. The elder said, "To perform the garlic hoe, the user needs to raise both hands at chest level, open their hands, and then leave them in a way where the palm of one rests on the back of the other hand like this." The elder shot a powerful energy towards the stone. The elder again spoke, "Be careful when using this. Depending on how much energy you put into the attack, you'll be able to destroy a planet," said the elder, shooting the energy at the stone, pulverizing it. So Wukong, seeing the technique, tried to copy it. He shot a garlic hoe in the direction of another stone that was there. But the result was a garlic hoe 50% weaker. Therefore, it did not pulverize the stone like the elder. The elder said, "You're doing well, Wukong," the elder said while clapping his hands. Wukong said, "I don't think so, but I better stop. Just with this garlic hoe, all my energy is gone," said Wukong, appearing to be depressed. Wukong rested on one of the rocks there. He sat on the ground, leaning his torso on the rock. The elder was on his feet, but he soon sat down with Wukong. The old man said, "You know, Wukong, you need to improve your energy control more. But don't worry about that. We'll test what you can do later," said the old man, closing his eyes and not taking so long to sleep. Wukong stared at the elder. His expression was one of surprise, but Wukong didn't care about that and just closed his eyes as well. Wukong rested for a few hours. Both were in the deepest of sleep. Wukong and the elder woke up the next day. Wukong was the first to wake up, shaking the elder who was still sleeping. The elder got up, picked up a rock and threw it to Wukong's face, just to test if Wukong's reflexes were up to date. The old man said, "No more stalling. You're at the height of your power. I will teach you everything I know about Garlic Ho," said the elder, approaching Wukong. The elder spoke. "First, controlling your power is essential. You will firstly shape your energy. Maybe use less energy, however with more intensity. Try," said the elder, slapping Wukong on the back. Wukong tried to do exactly as the elder had said, but it didn't work. He just fired a small blast of energy, but it wasn't exactly how Wukong wanted it. The elder spoke. "I'll have to use this." "Good luck trying to endure the pain," said the elder, leaving Wukong extremely confused. The elder began to touch Wukong's pressure points. In all, there were 12 pressure points. All of these points were to release greater control over Wukong's energy. The elder spoke. "Try it now, noble warrior," said the old man, distracting himself a few meters from Wukong. Wukong changed his position, put his arms back, and then fired. He used much less energy than before, but it seemed like his energy was denser now. Wukong began to further amplify his energy, increasing the level more and more. The stone, which was Wukong's target, began to deteriorate. His attempt had been successful. Wukong said, "I did it, master. I achieved it," Wukong said, jumping towards the old man and hugging him. The elder spoke. "Congratulations, boy. I knew you would make it," said the old man, returning Wukong's hug. Wukong and the elder were talking to each other for a few hours. Wukong was very happy to have learned his new technique. And Wukong said, "You know, master, when you learn something you need to practice, don't you? But practicing until you get it right is not right. The correct thing is to practice until it is impossible to make a mistake," Wukong said, looking at the elder with a clear determination on his face. The elder said, "Oh, that's the spirit, Wukong. You can go practice and don't forget. Any questions? I'll be here," said the old man, sitting on the ground and resting on a stone again. Wukong walked to the deepest part of the cave and began to practice the use of that technique incessantly while thinking about gaining strength to finally free the planet from the Saiyans, from the hands of the icy race. After staying in the cave, Wukong trained so incessantly that he just couldn't take it, and so much effort he made in training. Wukong even thought about giving up. However, he remembered Yamoshi and his partner's accomplishments. Wukong then thought that he shouldn't give up. If he gave up, it would all be in vain. Wukong felt terrible pain in his arms, legs, hands, and all over his body. However, Wukong continued training until he managed to deliver a strong Garlic Ho, which shook the cave. After Wukong managed to do such a feat, he went to where the elder was to talk about how his training had been. Wukong said, "You know, old man, I managed to overcome myself. I managed to shake everything. Did you see?" said Wukong, very optimistic and convinced. The old man said, "Yes, I noticed. I was eating and I got all dirty with the food that fell," said the old man, angry at Wukong for dropping his food. Wukong said, "I'm sorry about that. I got a little excited when I remembered Yamoshi. You know who he is, right?" Wukong said, looking directly into the old man's eye. The old man said, "Of course. He is a legendary Saiyan, the former general of the Saiyan race, the one who died unjustly because of those soldiers, right? I heard his stories," said the old man, putting his hand on his chin, symbolizing that he was thinking. The old man said, "Something came to mind. I remember that I may have one chance, small, but it's still a chance, that you can bring Yamoshi back," said the elder, thinking about something he had read in a book once. Wukong said, "What? No! You are funny. Is this serious?" Wukong shouted in surprise at the elder. The old man said, "Shut up. Let me finish talking," shouted the old man, throwing a punch at Wukong that sent him to the wall. Wukong said, "All right, I'll stop," said Wukong, scratching his head, trying to make the pain go away. The elder said, "There are certain types of strange planets with different species on these planets. There is something called Dragon Sphere," said the elder, facing Wukong. Wukong spoke. "And for what they," asked Wukong before being interrupted. The old man said, "Shut up and listen," said the elder, shouting to Wukong. The old man said, "In the book I read, the legend said that after gathering the spears, you would be able to make a single request. That request even includes taking someone out of the clutches of death itself," said the elder, explaining to Wukong how the spears worked, according to the book that the elder had read. Wukong said, "So then I could," Wukong said with a hopeful look. The elder said, "Yes." said the elder, giving space for Wukong to complete his sentence. And Wukong spoke. So I could bring Yamoshi back. I like that, old man. Take me to this planet, said Wukong, excited about the idea of bringing Yamoshi back. Wukong looked at the horizon and thought, I'll finally bring you back, my fighting partner. See you soon. Yamoshi. Wukong seemed to be determined to embark on another adventure. However, the elder pulled Wukong into the cave. The eldest said, I know the way to this planet, but how are we going? I don't have a ship around here. We're going to have to steal some army ship from those lizards, said the elder, suggesting something risky for Wukong. Wukong said, I have such a toy, Wukong said while laughing mischievously. Wukong started looking in his cave for something he remembered keeping there, but even after looking for a while, Wukong couldn't find it, until he went to a place and thought to himself. Wukong thought, what the hell? I remembered putting that toy away somewhere around here. Where could he be? I can't possibly miss something like this, Wukong thought, circling the area looking for what he had hidden. After circling that area a bit, Wukong ended up stepping on something strange and made a surprised face. The emotion was such that Wukong ended up letting out a big smile. He finally found it. Wukong spoke. Finally, I knew my toy was over here. Now just take it out of here and remember how I use it, Wukong said excitedly as he was going to find what he had hidden. With a little effort, Wukong managed to remove what he was looking for, the spaceship which was underground. After removing it, Wukong began to take it to the outside of the cave. That wasn't easy because the ship was quite big, and Wukong couldn't hold the ship right. Upon managing to take the ship to the beginning of the cave, Wukong entered the ship and realized how old it really was. The ship had controls well outdated, which made it difficult to use. But even with these negative points, the Saiyan managed to use it. He began to levitate the ship just before accelerating and taking off. Wukong ended up traveling across the universe. The trip took a few hours. After all, the ship wasn't that powerful. Wukong ended up arriving in Namek. He landed very abruptly and inappropriately, but it was enough to not get hurt and not break the ship that was no longer in good condition, since the time that the ship was unused took a good part of her efficiency. Wukong started flying and looking for the spheres in Namek. This task seemed to be less difficult when Wukong remembered that the spheres glowed and weren't so small. Wukong found the first sphere in a cave, which he himself had to dig holes just to get it. The next was under a kind of stream that Wukong had found. The third was in the branches of a tree that was near the top of a mountain, and the last of all spheres, it was found in a village, in one of the houses inside a chest, so Wukong had to steal it stealthily. After breaking into the house and getting the spheres, Wukong sneaked out and went to a mountain. He looked in the rocks, in one of the caves on that mountain, but found nothing, until Wukong decided to fly and go to the top of the mountain. The air was thin, but Wukong was used to that. He climbed high enough that he could see a small golden glow. The fifth Dragon Ball was embedded in the mountain. Wukong punched the mountain, and after opening a huge hole, Wukong took the Dragon Ball and put it in a bag that he had. Wukong went down the mountain and started looking for the sixth Dragon Ball. He went to the sea of the place and dived. The water was thick, making it difficult to see any glow that he could have in the place. Wukong was descending more and more. The pressure exerted was making Wukong almost faint, but he saw a glow at the bottom of the sea. Wukong went down, and as soon as he caught the spear with his hand, he returned as quickly as possible to the surface. He came out of the water and lay down on the ground. Wukong said, "Finally, there's only one left now. How tiring," said Wukong, who was panting because he had lost a lot of air and needed to breathe to calm down. Wukong got up and went to get the last Dragon Ball, which was inside a huge crater. Wukong entered the place sliding along the side, and then he took the spear with his hand and put it in his bag. Wukong flew to a remote area and correctly positioned all the spears on the ground. Wukong spoke. "Takaraputo porogunga, pupirito paro," said Wukong in the Namekian language. Wukong was wise to the point of knowing several languages of different people besides the Saiyans. He was a master in the language of the Namekians. The spheres glowed, and then a gigantic dragon appeared in front of Wukong. The dragon's name was Porunga. The dragon was brutal. It had big muscles on its upper body, and it didn't look much like the Shenron serpent. The dragon spoke. "You summoned me. You have 3 wishes. Keep it short," said the dragon, looking at Wukong up and down. Even with the magnitude of the presence of that frightening creature, Wukong did not show a hint of fear. He was completely emotionally balanced, that the existence of that huge being would not be able to bother him. Wukong showed determination in his eyes when he said, "I want to revive a friend. His name is Yamoshi. He was a strong and fearless Saiyan. You can revive dead Saiyans, right? This is my desire," Wukong said, exhaling determination and courage on his face. Porunga smiled upon hearing Wukong's words. After the request was made, Porunga was thoughtful about what Wukong had asked for. Porunga said, "Impressive. It surprises me a lot how you don't even tremble in my presence. Normally anyone who invokes me is frightened by my size and the level of my power. Well then, let's get down to business. Do you intend to revive someone who is already gone? This is a really big wish, as it would cost you the other 2 wishes, as Yamoshi was a very powerful being. Are you sure that's what you want, mortal?" said Porunga, questioning Wukong. Wukong continued not to be shaken, not even in the face of the praise received from such an incredible being. Wukong just pointed to the dragon. Wukong spoke. "Yes, I wouldn't ask for anything more than that. That's the only thing I want from you. So that's it. I want you to revive my friend Yamoshi," said Wukong, making his request to Porunga. Porunga stood up and looked into Wukong's eyes, looked him up and down. The dragon seemed to be even bigger, and its voice was really menacing. Porunga made some specific moves trying to fulfill Wukong's wish. Porunga said, "If that's all you want, it will be very easy for me to fulfill your request. Wukong, you have my respect, and now I will tell you what to do. Yamoshi will appear in a cave near where your ship was. Go there now. I'll finish what I'm doing before you reach the cave," Porunga said, ordering Wukong to leave. Wukong started to leave without thanking or saying goodbye. He just wanted to get as fast as possible to the cave where Yamoshi was supposed to appear. He entered the ship and looked one last time at the dragon with high hopes that his wish would come true, although there was still a part of Wukong that thought this could go wrong. He took off with the ship and followed the path back to where Yamoshi should be. Upon reaching the planet's orbit, Wukong began its landing. But as the ship was not in a good condition, the ship began to fail as soon as it entered the planet's atmosphere, until the ship completely stopped responding to Wukong's commands, and it went towards the ground straight and faster and faster. Wukong knew that if the ship fell at high speed, it would break, and there would be no repair for such an accident. So Wukong got out of the ship and flew toward it quickly. After doing that, Wukong held the ship and tried to lift it in midair. The ship was old and weighed more than modern ships, but Wukong was strong enough to slow it down and make it not hit the ground too fast and break. As soon as Wukong left the ship, Yamoshi appeared at full speed and went over the ship. But unintentionally, Yamoshi hit the ship with his knee, breaking the roof of the ship. Wukong's jaw dropped with that situation, because he didn't know if he wanted to punch him for having broken the ship that was just saved, or if he wanted to hug him because he hadn't seen Yamoshi for a long time. Wukong was happy to see that the dragon kept his word. Wukong decided to choose the second option, as he was happy with his friend's return. Along with Yamoshi was the Elder and Kennen, who joined the hug and were laughing after Wukong told what had just happened. Wukong said, "How in the world are the dead?" Wukong said, mocking Yamoshi. Yamoshi said, "Why don't you change, you idiot?" said Yamoshi, punching Wukong in the stomach, which made him hit the walls of the ship. Wukong said, Wukong said, scratching his nose. Wukong took a short break to breathe and composed himself, and said, "You've been training where you were, haven't you?" Wukong said while punching Yamoshi's chin, making him fly out of the ship. The old man said, "These Saiyans always fighting," said the old man while putting his hand on his face, as if he were disappointed with what happened. Yamoshi said, "I like that, Wukong." Yamoshi shouted excitedly about the fight. Wukong left with all his speed in the direction of Yamoshi. Wukong released a ki blast in the direction of Yamoshi, who dodged and throws another ki blast in the direction of Wukong. Wukong said, "You're much faster, huh?" Wukong said, excited about the fight, but the fight was interrupted by the Elder, who ordered the two to enter the ship. The old man said, "Let's go, you crazy people, before they destroy the planet." The Elder appeared to be irritated by the Saiyans. Yamoshi said, "What a boring old man. Didn't he have another companion?" said Yamoshi, crossing his arms and returning to the ship. Wukong said, "He taught me a very strong technique. As soon as we get to the cave, I'll show you." Returning to the cave where they were, the Elder proposed to train both of them, but Anjo's apprentice Kennen appeared and interfered once more. The angel apprentice Kennen spoke. "Now can we get back to training, Wukong?" said the angel, who was serious. In another dimension, Kennen and Wukong were training. Wukong unleashed a ki blast on Kennen. The angel Kennen's apprentice spoke. "You know this isn't going to have the slightest effect on me, right?" Wukong replied. "But I know it will," Wukong said, shooting a Galick Gun in Kennen's direction. Angel Ken and Apprentice said, Wukong, I have some questions for you. First, where did you learn this technique? And second, how long did you take to learn this? Kennen asked, surprised to see Wukong's technique. Wukong spoke, I learned this technique from the old elder in a few hours. I want to show you how strong I am now, Kennen. Let's show Ultra Instinct, said Wukong, preparing another garlic hoe. In the cave, Yamoshi was with the elder, who proposed rigorous training to Yamoshi. The old man said, let's learn a technique. It's called garlic hoe. First, you have to throw your arms at chest height and then put them back, said the elder, getting in the pose to fire the garlic hoe. The elder spoke, now throw your hands forward like this. While the old man did the pose, Yamoshi memorized the movements. Yamoshi said, okay, old man, I'll try to reproduce your techniques. Yamoshi tried to reproduce the technique, so he shot through a forest, destroying everything there. The elder spoke, careful where you aim, you idiot. The elder punched Yamoshi in the head, making him fall to the ground. Yamoshi said, sorry, Saiyan said while scratching his head. In another dimension, Wukong was shooting several blasts of ki towards Kennen. The angel dodged all the spears of ki. Angel Kennen spoke, do you think you'll be able to dominate the superior instinct like this? Kennen said as he disappeared and appeared on Wukong's back. The angel apprentice Kennen glared at Wukong before making his next move. Angel Kennen apprentice spoke, you have to keep your mind calm and let your body move freely, said the angel, attacking Wukong's neck. Wukong was caught by Kennen's blow, but he kept his focus and refused to be knocked down by the angel. Wukong jumped in the opposite direction where Kennen was and fired another ki blast. However, the angel dodged his furious attacks. Wukong attacked him with a powerful blow, but Kennen was already expecting this blow, so he dodged to the side and dealt a quick blow to Wukong's forearm. Wukong was out of energy, however his objective was greater. Getting there would have been useless if he gave up. Kennen took advantage of the distraction and landed another blow to Wukong's neck. The Saiyan warrior began to spit blood but remained calm in the face of that situation. Wukong's determination was greater than anyone in this land. Wukong concentrated and started to close his eyes. Wukong spoke, inhale and exhale, he said to himself. The angel apprentice Kennen tried to attack Wukong, but Wukong dodged even with his eyes closed. Then an aura began to fade from Kong's body, which left Kennen surprised. The angel Kennen spoke, how wonderful! This is the superior instinct. Wukong and Yamoshi's training continued while this was happening. Several planets were destroyed and dominated by Frigg, Frieza's ancestor. But in the meantime, the Saiyans' planet began to be attacked by Frigg and his Ice Race army. And the apprentice, Angel was able to see this invasion thanks to his team, and immediately managed to grab Wukong and Yamoshi and take them to the Saiyans' planet. Still in the Saiyans' village. A ray of light appeared in the midst of that invasion that was transient on the Saiyans' planet was Wukong, Angel Kennen, and Yamoshi. Quickly, Angel Kennen left there, leaving only the Saiyans in battle. Frigg, seeing that flash of light, already knew it was his enemy and advanced toward them without thinking. But Wukong didn't stay still at high speed and tried to hit him with a punch, but was unsuccessful because Wukong was using Ultra Instinct, and that the form made Wukong dodge the blows quickly. But Wukong still hadn't mastered this technique perfectly and therefore lacked attack speed. Frigg threw another punch right after, making Wukong dodge once more, but Wukong tried to counterattack. But before that, Wukong was interrupted and forced to dodge a low kick from the great king of the icy race, Frigg, who was able to easily see a weakness in Wukong while smiling at Wukong's face. That was Frigg's plan every time Wukong prepared to attack. Frigg attacked and forced him to dodge, and as the resistance of the icy race is greater than that of the Saiyans, Frigg would sometime hit his punch of extreme destructive power right in the middle of the opponent's face. Wukong got serious. He really didn't have much to do in that situation. Wukong was waiting for his opponent to falter until at a certain moment Frigg started laughing non-stop. Frigg said, "Dodge to death, you idiot. Let's see how long you can play this stupid little game with my punches," said King Frigg, who kept giving unsuccessful punches and kicks to Wukong. Wukong was getting frustrated and seriously thinking about taking one of Frigg's attacks to see if this fight would end, but Wukong still didn't want to risk that much. After thinking of a way to win, a light of hope appeared and took Wukong out of the darkness. Frigg received a very hard punch that sent him flying away, and the punch was landed by Wukong's loyal partner Yamoshi. After landing a beautiful punch to his opponent's face, Yamoshi smiled. Yamoshi said, "I'm tired and bored of seeing you attack my friend Wukong, so it's my turn to join the fight, Mr. Frigg," said Yamoshi, assuming his fighting stance and thus becoming a serious threat to Frigg. Frigg said, It looks like you're back, isn't it? But I'm going to make you return to the world of the dead, you cursed ones." Yamoshi and Wukong greeted each other by standing side by side, and then they went at their opponent with all their strength that they had, because Frigg in terms of strength was equal to 2 Saiyans, and despite taking punches, none of the fighters had their guard really broken. Yamoshi and Wukong were holding up well to the punches and kicks that were taking until Yamoshi backed up to prepare a technique while Wukong faced Frigg alone. The blow consisted of Wukong distracting the opponent and Yamoshi aiming his technique at Frigg, so that when Yamoshi released his technique, Wukong dodged it, and the opponent took all the damage himself. Wukong and Yamoshi tried to execute the plan, but as soon as Frigg realized that Yamoshi was ready with his technique, Frigg thought, "I think I've seen this before. It's very clever, but it has its weakness." Frigg, as a great actor, pretended that he didn't understand what was happening, so that he could fight back at the right moment. So Yamoshi launched his key technique on top of Wukong, who teleported himself, but as soon as Wukong disappeared, Frigg appeared behind Yamoshi with a kick, almost hitting him. Frigg just didn't kick Yamoshi because before Frigg could, he ended up taking a powerful elbow from Wukong, who knew that Frigg would appear there. Wukong said, "You may be smart, but you're still much dumber than me. I knew you'd understand that technique and take that opportunity to catch Yamoshi off guard. However, you didn't count on my cunning, and now you're going to be beaten just because of that," Wukong said, teasing Frigg. After taking an elbow, Frigg was still hit by a kick from Yamoshi that threw the king of the icy race towards Wukong, who received it with a hook, making Frigg fly upwards. After throwing Frigg up there, Wukong sent the king of the icy race towards Yamoshi, who also received Frigg with a punch, and sent him up again with a kick. Frigg exploded with rage and began to raise his ki even more, making the 2 warriors startle with much power in a single creature. Frigg went over Yamoshi since he was a little injured and threw him towards Wukong, who held his ally with both hands. Then Frigg threw to Wukong, who couldn't defend himself and ended up taking the full damage. Frigg started a sequence of combined blows on the 2 opponents. Frigg kicked Yamoshi and Wukong at the same time, making them fly in the same direction. Then Frigg fired several blasts of ki and then advanced on top of the 2 Saiyans, surpassing Ki's own shots and hitting Yamoshi and Wukong with a knee. As soon as the Saiyans had a chance to fight back, they ended up taking the ki blasts, and with that they lost the opportunity, which meant that they had opened a gap for Frigg to hit the 2 Saiyans again. In the cave, the old man said, "This fight began to lean a lot towards the king of the icy race after all. Frigg was managing to win alone against the 2 Saiyans. Wukong will have to do something because Yamoshi is already tired. Apart from the fact that even if Yamoshi and Wukong manage to match Frigg, the king of the icy race is still far from falling. His resistance is quite impressive, so Wukong and Yamoshi will have to overcome a lot there. They will have to pass this level of fighting power if they want to stand a chance against the king of the entire icy race," said the old man, making Kennen reflect on what he could do. Back to the village. Wukong retreated because he felt that he was not yet at his peak and that he would be able to go beyond that, far beyond that. Wukong sought to concentrate even more. Wukong looked for the extreme focus, and once it hit, he got a high-level surprise. His hair turned white and his whole body glowed with a sparkling aura and an even more serious countenance. This is the complete form of the higher instinct. After this form was reached, the Saiyans together managed to match Frigg's power, but that wasn't enough yet. Since, as Kennen said, Yamoshi and Wukong would need to overcome Frigg's power a lot if they wanted to win, because the king of the icy race had enormous resistance. But Wukong and Yamoshi could find a way to make Frigg's power decrease. Both Saiyans focused on trying to make Frigg break the bones, and with that they ended up aiming the punches and kicks at the most sensitive points of the king of the ice race. But Frigg understood the plan of the Saiyans before they executed it, and so Frigg defended the areas of his body that he knew the Saiyans would attack. Wukong, with that power, was no longer hit by Frigg's blows because Frigg couldn't hit him, so apparently everyone was trapped in the same situation, in which neither side could do anything. That is, both could only do their best not to lose control. Fight. But beyond that battle was the angel Kennen in the cave. Kennen was worried about what could happen during the match, so he kept thinking of a way to make the 2 Saiyans overcome his opponent's offensive until finally Kennen found an answer. He remembered that he had the Potara Earrings and took them out of his pocket. Kennen said, "I shouldn't give this to you, but it's the only thing I can do in this time of torment and worry," said Kennen, holding the Potara Earrings in his hand. The elder looked at that curious object. After a long look, the old man approached Kennen as if he didn't want anything. The elder spoke. "What is this? And how can it help you win?" "I think lucky items won't work in this fight," said the elder, questioning Kennen. Kennen tried to explain this to the elder clearly so he could understand. Kennen said, "These are Potara Earrings. They are able to make the two users become one, which caused the fighting power to increase drastically, and that would be very useful now. But the fusion has a time limit that cannot be disregarded. So I'll wait a little longer," said Kennen, waiting for the right moment to wear the earrings. The right moment would be when Frigg was already more weakened and tired, and so maybe Yamoshi and Wukong could win against the king of the icy race. Hey guys, I know it's sad when today's video unfortunately ends, but don't worry because the next episodes are coming. If you liked it, don't forget to leave your like. It helps us a lot and motivates us to continue with these videos that you like so much. Comment your theories of what might happen in the next episode and share the video with your friends so you can watch it together. That's it. See you guys.